Hunt for the Fighting Falcon. How the Houthis tried to shoot down a U.S. F-16. On February 19, 2025, a U.S. Air Force F-16 was conducting a routine patrol near the coast of Yemen over the Red Sea. Suddenly, the steady hum of the jet engine was shattered by a sharp warning signal. The aircraft was under missile attack. Time, which had been dragging moments before, instantly accelerated. Every second now counted. No, this isn't a scene from a novel or a Hollywood action movie. This is the harsh reality of modern-day conflict. According to Fox News, citing 3 high-ranking Pentagon officials, the Shiite rebel group Ansar Allah, more commonly known as the Houthis, attempted to shoot down an American F-16 Fighting Falcon with several missiles. The report states that the missiles passed dangerously close to the aircraft but did not hit it. The pilot was able to return safely to base. It's believed the Houthi anti-aircraft system was located near the Yemeni port city of Al-Hudaydah, which lies on the Red Sea coast. One version suggests the missile system used was the Soviet-made SA-6 gainful surface-to-air missile system. Another theory points to Soviet air-to-air missiles such as the R-27 or R-73, modified by the Houthis for ground launch. Despite their age, either of these weapon types remains a serious and potentially lethal threat. The Soviet SA-6, known in the USSR as the 2K-12 Cub, entered service in 1967 and was retired by the end of the 1990s. Its primary missile, the 3M9, can reach a speed of 2.8 Mach and has a maximum effective range and altitude of about 15 miles and 11 miles respectively. The missiles use a semi-active radar homing guidance system, which means it requires continuous radar illumination from the ground for a successful hit. A single launcher typically carries 3 missiles. This system gained notoriety during the 1973 Yom Kippur War. Using it, Syrian forces reportedly shot down 64 Israeli aircraft. According to Western sources, 3/4 of all Israeli aircraft losses, particularly the A-4 Skyhawk, which suffered the highest casualties, were attributed to the Cub system. The R-27 missile, designated AA-10 Alamo by NATO, was adopted in 1971 and used on Su-27s and MiG-29s. It was phased out by the late 1990s. Depending on the variant, it can be equipped with a semi-active or active radar seeker or an infrared homing head. The R-27 can reach speeds of up to Mach 4 and has a range of up to 45 miles. In contrast, the R-73, another air-to-air missile, has less impressive performance. It reaches speeds of about 2.5 Mach and has a maximum range of around 12 miles. Because of its shorter range and lower capabilities, it's considered the least likely candidate for use in this incident. But how did these aging yet still dangerous weapons end up in the hands of the Houthis? After the collapse of the Soviet Union, thousands of weapon systems ended up in the hands of various regimes and militant groups, and the Middle East became a veritable graveyard of Cold War hardware where outdated technology found a second life. The Cub systems and other Soviet missile platforms had once been supplied to Iraq, Syria, Egypt, and Libya. Some of them likely made their way to Yemen through Iran, the Houthis' main ally. Iran not only organized the transportation of this equipment, but also developed the capability to modify old weapons, restore missiles, and in some cases even produce local copies based on original blueprints. It appears that it was in Iranian workshops where these Cub systems, along with R-27 and R-73 missiles, were refurbished and ultimately handed over to those who had learned to fight guerrilla wars not only on the ground, but also in the air. To understand why American pilots found themselves in the crosshairs of aging but still deadly missile systems, we need to consider the geopolitical landscape. The Red Sea is a critical artery of global trade. As much as 10% of global maritime traffic, including shipments of oil and gas, passes through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. In late 2023, amid the Israel-Hamas war, the Yemeni Houthis, a Shiite insurgent group that controls a significant portion of Yemen, declared a naval blockade against Israeli ships and began targeting civilian vessels. These attacks grew so frequent and audacious that the United States was forced to launch Operation Prosperity Garden, aimed at safeguarding maritime navigation and protecting commercial shipping lanes from assault. American destroyers, aircraft carriers, and fighter jets began to patrol the area regularly, putting pilots at constant risk of enemy attacks. Although the Houthis lack a conventional army, weapons factories, or a military-industrial complex, they possess one key advantage: determination, fanaticism, and Iranian support. This combination has enabled them to turn rusted Soviet-era weapons into deadly threats in the 21st century. The Pentagon has classified all the details of the incident, so we can only speculate how the American pilot managed to evade the incoming missiles. Based on standard pilot procedures and the technical capabilities of the F-16, we can reconstruct the likely scenario. The first warning probably came from the onboard APG-83 radar system mounted in the aircraft's nose. Detecting the threat wouldn't have been difficult. The radar has a maximum range of up to 125 miles, while in this case the distance was likely no more than 15 miles if it was a 3M9 missile, or up to 45 miles in the case of an R-27. Following standard protocol, the pilot immediately executed a steep dive, rapidly losing altitude. This is a common and effective maneuver. Since the radar indicated that the aircraft was being illuminated by a ground-based tracking system, descending reduced the radar's line of sight and effectiveness, but the missiles were still closing in fast, as indicated by the rising pitch and frequency of the radar warning receiver alerts, part of the F-16's countermeasure warning system. It was no longer emitting intermittent beeps, it was screaming at full pitch. To survive, the pilot began intense evasive maneuvers, pushing the aircraft to its maximum structural limits up to 9G. What does 9G feel like? Imagine your heart, normally the size of a large orange, suddenly weighing nearly 7 pounds. That's the kind of stress the human body endures at 9G. Your own weight multiplies by 9, turning you into a 1,300-pound polar bear. At this critical moment, the pylon integrated dispensing system kicked in. Mounted on the aircraft's wing pylons, this system automatically deploys countermeasures when a missile closes in. In a single burst, it ejects 12 infrared flares and 24 chaff bundles, creating a cloud behind the aircraft with a strong heat and radar signature designed to confuse and divert incoming missiles. Not every missile is capable of recognizing a decoy and ignoring it. One of the incoming missiles was successfully deceived. Traveling at several times the speed of sound, it plunged into the cloud of flares and chaff, and its proximity fuse immediately triggered the warhead, detonating several dozen kilograms of high explosives. But by that moment, the Fighting Falcon was already far from the blast site, and the deadly spray of steel fragments failed to reach the jet. However, the remaining missiles were still locked onto their target. Fortunately, the F-16 had one more line of defense, the AN/ALQ-184 electronic countermeasures pod, housed in a cylindrical casing about 8 feet long and 12 inches in diameter, mounted under the fuselage. This system is nothing short of remarkable. With its onboard computer, it can simultaneously analyze multiple radar signals, identify the nature of the threat, the missile type, the origin of the surface-to-air system, and what kind of seeker head it uses. Based on this information, it automatically selects the best countermeasure tactic, whether it's generating noise jamming, pulse interference, or digitally replicating the enemy's radar signal to create a convincing false target. By the way, its signal output can reach up to 10 kilowatts per pulse. That's a significant hit to the missile's electronic systems. The AN/ALQ-184 was developed by Northrop Grumman, and in this case, it performed flawlessly. It jammed the guidance electronics of the Soviet-made missiles and severed their data link with the ground-based radar. As a result, the remaining missiles flew blindly past the aircraft, unaware that their target was no longer in their sights. Moments later, they self-destructed in the sky, leaving only black smudges of smoke. The F-16, having come terrifyingly close to destruction, turned around and set course for base. Most likely, that was Al Dhafra Air Base, located south of Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. Since 2021, this base has played a key role in intercepting Houthi missile attacks on the UAE. It's also possible that the aircraft was heading for Al Udeid Air Base southwest of Doha, the capital of Qatar. But the day wasn't over for the U.S. Air Force. Less than an hour later, the Houthis struck again. This time, the target was an American MQ-9 Reaper reconnaissance drone patrolling the same region northeast of Al Hudaydah. The drone was monitoring Houthi supply convoys when a missile launch was detected. The Reaper onboard Pandora warning system activated its defenses. The drone gained altitude and deployed countermeasures. Thanks to the rapid response of its ALR-69 radar warning receiver, the Reaper avoided a direct hit. However, several metal fragments from the missile's warhead struck its right wing, causing damage. Despite this, the UAV managed to return to base. Naturally, the United States was not about to tolerate such brazen aggression from insurgents. Within 8 hours after gathering intelligence on the attackers' positions, the destroyer USS Spruance was ordered to move closer to the Yemeni coast and launch a retaliatory strike using an SM supersonic multi-role missile. This missile was chosen instead of a Tomahawk to reduce the time between launch and impact, denying the Houthis the chance to relocate. 6 minutes after launch, the target was destroyed. But that was only the beginning. On March 15th, the United States launched strikes against dozens of Houthi targets across Yemen. Former President Donald Trump confirmed the action via his Truth Social account. Today, I gave the order for U.S. armed forces to begin decisive and powerful military action against the Houthi terrorists in Yemen. They are conducting a relentless campaign of piracy, violence, and terrorism against American and allied ships, aircraft, and drones, Trump declared. He also warned the Houthis of a hell they have never seen before if they did not immediately cease their attacks, starting that very day. As Trump typed those words, 4 waves of F-A-18 fighter bombers launched from the aircraft carrier USS Harry S. Truman, CVN-75, were already striking Houthi military infrastructure using AGM-154 precision-guided missiles. And not long after, Tomahawk cruise missiles followed. The Houthis were in for a long and restless night. According to the New York Times, U.S. forces targeted radar systems, air defense units, and missile and drone platforms with the goal of reopening international shipping lanes in the Red Sea that the Houthis had been disrupting for months through sustained attacks. Such is the daily reality for the U.S. military in the Middle East today. Maintaining global dominance is no easy task, but without it, America wouldn't be America. Do you agree? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. See you again soon.